talk is by Vladmir. He's going to be talking about file quarantine and some very interesting bugs he has found that could be used to compromise Mac systems. So let's give a round of applause for Vladmir.
Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk about file quarantine in macOS, and this research is based. This work is based on my research that I was doing in early 2018. In details, we are going to talk about macOS file quarantine in general, about all possible payloadable macOS recognized files, macOS handled files, about quarantine handling in macOS apps, especially in messengers and in cloud file storages. Who am I? I work as an application security engineer for Grammarly, and I mostly focus on code analysis, on macOS, sometimes on browser environments. So the first question is, what is file quarantine? Why there is so much hype around Gatekeeper? I hope everyone see Gatekeeper in action. For example, this dialog is created by Gatekeeper mechanism, by file quarantine mechanism, would be better to say. macOS file quarantine, it's in general, file quarantine mechanism prevents the loaded content from being launched without the user's explicit confirmation, like you need to click button to run the content downloaded from the web. Gatekeeper mechanism enforces code signing, verifies the loaded applications before allowing them to run. It's obvious. Actually, Gatekeeper mechanism relies on the ComApple quarantine attribute, its extended file attribute. That quarantine mechanism, quarantine not Gatekeeper, assigns to the downloaded file. There is a Windows clone known as Mark of the Web, and it's important to understand that this option is default for all apps and box applications. So if you would like to discover more about file quarantine, you can check Jonathan Levy's work, Patrick Wardle's research, VVDC, and so on. It's also interesting thing that Gatekeeper bypass is a neutral attack technique. Actually, file quarantine can be split into two phases, the stages. The first stage is file downloading, and the second stage is actual file launching. When the app downloads a file from a remote resource, the app can quarantine the file directly by calling Satur. Actually, nobody uses this option. There is an alternative. You can the app can just delegate the quarantine process to operating system. It requires setting the ls file quarantine enabled property to false. Yeah, it's completely not obvious, but it is. Okay, the second stage is file launching. When the user launches the file via launch services, OS checks ComApple quarantine extended file attribute. If enabled, Gatekeeper runs code signing check, authorization checks, and malware scan. Depending on the user's Gatekeeper settings, macOS might prevent the file from launching. For example, like in case if user only allows content from the App Store and the app is signed by a third-party developer, the app won't be able to run. Yeah. So let's imagine for just for a minute that there was no quarantine. Actually, this behavior results in any downloaded file could be launched in a single open. OS wouldn't enforce code sign requirements for executables. There would be no OS protection against malware, no checks for authorization, and the most interesting thing is that in this case, websites likely would be able to execute arbitrary code using the WinTail and Shift update trick with API schemes in Safari browser. So since we're talking about files, it's important to understand which files we operate with, which files, which options we have. We can split all files, all possible macOS files, in two categories. The first category is files that can include other potentially harmful files. Those files are disk images, file archives, package installers. You can see a full list of possible extensions in Launch Services framework or in Chromium project. Anyway, their blacklist is good. Another, so okay, it was the first option. Another files are directly harmful files and can cause some potentially opening of these files can lead to some bad consequences. The first file is app, however, the app is a directory, it's a bundle, and to execute it needs +X file permission on the main binary. Web archive is also an interesting thing. It's still not patched, and potentially a web archive file can cause UX success and in theory remote execution. It's a list and it can be signed. Actions, the action, flow, and so on. Those files are automata actions, and they don't need +X to launch. However, there is a problem when you open an automata file, the automata UI pops up, and it's not a silent process of code execution. Another option is tool command delete, but all these files needs +X permission. Internet connect, network connects, config profile, mobile config, and so on. All these files are configuration files that can modify device settings. However, the user's confirmation is required. And the last file is terminal. Terminal file is actually a terminal app preferences file. This file allows running code. It's actually an XML. It's actually a list, and these files can be signed. The most interesting thing that terminal can be signed, but still terminal can execute. Where terminal you can execute some code. Basically, most people store their terminal app configuration preferences like font size, colors, and so on in terminal files, but you can set a command string option and add the startup code into a startup shell code into this option. But what's the most interesting is that it's just an XML file that can, in theory, execute code. That's not standard because most people think that only apps or binary or executables can, in theory, execute code on their machines. That's not true. Terminals is an answer. So let's start reviewing file quarantine handling in messengers. There are many problems with messengers. The first problem is that they have a very unsafe user experience. Many apps have an option open functionality that's implemented via this workspace open. And yeah, it's really unsafe because it directly opens the file. It doesn't allow the user to take a look at this file in Finder and so on. The second problem is that most apps don't have file preview for non-image files in most cases, and terminal can be a binary and bypass text previews. Unsafe, again, some applications, some messengers open downloaded files without download files without the user consent, for example, Telegram, and file name spoofing bugs. Yeah, some messengers have file spoofing bugs. The first victim of this problem is Slack. The problem is that we're just sending a terminal file to the victim. We can potentially bypass the text preview via a binary version of terminal. Once the victim opens it, the malicious code executes on the machine. Here is the timeline. The problem is that to fix this issue, it took Slack around more than 200 days to fix this issue, and well, it's abnormal. The second victim of this attack is WhatsApp. However, in case WhatsApp has a bit better UX, so it's not easy to trick the victim and open the file. Yeah, here is downloading. Open. Yeah, code executes. The vulnerability was reported to Facebook team, to WhatsApp team. WhatsApp team confirmed that they're going to fix this, but they doesn't consider this issue to be a vulnerability, just a platform-specific behavior. The most interesting thing is that the same version of WhatsApp that was vulnerable to file quarantine issue was also vulnerable to file name spoofing issue. So you can imagine the potential impact from from combining a file name spoofing bug with the lack of quarantine. Telegram. Okay, so we are just sending that terminal, opening the terminal, here is code execution. The issue was reported to Telegram. Telegram fixed the issue by so on. Later, I provided them with additional file extensions, but sadly, they enabled macOS file quarantine after like 3 months or half a year since the original repo. The problem is that the same version on which I was testing the exploit, it also was, it wasn't vulnerable, but the better version was vulnerable to, it was downloading, it was auto downloading, it has an auto downloaded feature, and it results in the app downloads files without the user. An important thing is that the user, when the user opens the file, they don't actually open the file, they click on the icon. It's important to understand. It's important to understand this, like, they click on the icon, they don't open the file actually. It's a different user experience. Skype. Again, this problem was also in Skype, this issue was also in Skype. Download, open, terminal. Reported to Skype, but Skype, at that time, Microsoft didn't have a security mail, so after 1 month, I reported it to security mail, to secure mail. MS confirmed the bug, but the bug was just silently fixed nowadays from MS, no Hall of Fame. I also reported this bug to Signal. And after 1 month since I have initially reported this issue, one Signal developer said me like, sorry, not quite sure I follow. Are you saying this issue also applies to Signal? And it's scary that developers don't know that macOS about different macOS features. Like they can't imagine that the issue in Skype or Brave on Slack can also affect their app. Also reported it to Viber, just for a joke. And they said me that we don't have a bug bounty, but we can add you $25 to your Viber route. In response, in Twitter, I posted a tweet that I would better chat with my friends over UDP rather than in Viber. And in a few days, they reached to me, but sadly their mail was marked as spam in my Gmail. And after like a few days, I noticed that, oh, here is my spam folder. And yeah, they responded that sorry, but with Viber out such a good feature and so on. Actually, I reported this bug to many different apps, to many different companies. But in September 19, I decided to disclose this technique. And just after a few days, I noticed that many other bug hunters decided to weaponize this technique and started reporting file quarantine bugs to messengers, to different apps, to different file syncing apps, and so on. And it's really great. Summarizing this part of the talk, at least 15 different messengers were affected, including such well-known messengers as Telegram, WhatsApp, Slack, Skype, Signal, Wicker, so on. This bug actually is extremely powerful because you don't need any sophisticated tooling or like sophisticated exploit to compromise the victim. You just need to send a terminal file and hope that the victim is going to open it. Most of the security teams treat secure file handling as a user's responsibility, as they treat file quarantine as a platform-specific behavior. And it's up to you to answer this question, is it the right approach? Most people are unaware of file quarantine completely. Apps, especially messengers, need to improve their UX security because the fact that you open the file not by opening the file, but by clicking the icon. It's uh, it's not obvious. For example, in iMessage, when you open the file, the finder pop-ups, not the file opens. And yeah, I haven't seen a single non-App Store app with enabled quarantine during this time of research. So let's move to the file quarantine handling in cloud file storages. Affected cloud file storages. They still don't apply file quarantine, except of key-based Dropbox, Google Drive, and Drive. They still don't apply file quarantine. As of Q4 2018, the only web with quarantine enabled was Yandex Disk, and it was completely not obvious for me. Only key-based fixed the issue so far. Yeah, there is a way to exploit quarantine there, and there is a way for companies, developers to fix this bug easily just by applying a random quarantine attribute to most harmful known files. So I decided to create an attack scenario, generic attack scenario for most of cloud file storage apps, and I decided to name it Sync and Launch. The idea is that to leverage file quarantine, we need to deliver a file to the user's device. Later, we can leverage the sync functionality of syncing apps and somehow launch the delivered file. The first interesting thing is that some apps allow you to sync a random an arbitrary file with from your device to the victim's device without any consent. For example, it was a legitimate key-based feature. There is also an option to just directly share the file over Google Drive or OneDrive with the user, but yeah, it requires too much interaction. And so I decided to come up with the idea of abusing web APIs and allows permissions, allows access of most cloud file storage apps. The idea is that both Dropbox and Google Drive have a folder integration. OneDrive has also a folder integration, and many third-party apps require this permission. Cloud file converters, file previewers, graphic video editors, and so on. Actually, attackers can trick the victim into authorizing a new folder integration or leverage existing vulnerable integration to deliver a malicious payload to the user device. And in some sense, it sounds ridiculous, but when you just click an allow button and some random app can put arbitrary unquarantined files to your drive, it sounds completely not obvious. Launch stage, yeah. If files have +X permission, after the sync, you can potentially sync a bundle, a folder, and use Windtail trick with abusing a protocol risk. There is an also alternative way. You can abuse URL file that behaves similarly to open. It's a shortcut file, and it was recently fixed in macOS Catalina. So let's summarize it. We have a malicious terminal file. We have a cloud file storage that doesn't apply file quarantine attributes. We have a shortcut file that allows to open any file on the device via Launch Services API, and actually we can make a great, we can combine all this and create a make exploit. For example, in case of keybase, attackers can sync a terminal file with target user via keybase file system without the user's consent. Later, the attacker can send a URL file to the victim, or somehow open this URL file on the device via Chrome extension or so on. And it would result in malicious code execution. I reported this bug to Keybase. They fixed the first part of the bug in one day. Then they fixed the problem with KBFS in like 2 or 3 days. Completely remediated the issue. Keybase completely remediated the issue in a few months. And the most interesting thing is that I also reported this problem to other vendors. I reported it to OneDrive, and OneDrive responded that they're not going to fix this issue because they received an exception from Apple's head of macOS security, and it's in Apple's position to not set file quarantine attribute on synced files. The most strange here is that it's their product, and for some reason they asked Apple macOS head of macOS security and received this exception. Okay. I reported also this problem to Dropbox. Dropbox just said that they're not going to fix this issue. I reported it again. They said that they're not going to fix this issue. I guess that I decided to disclose the report, but Dropbox didn't agree. The idea is that I guess, it's only my guess, that Dropbox team is aware of this problem, but they're not going to fix this because of possible UX issues for their users. That's also responded, OneDrive also said that they're not going to fix this because it results in a bunch of UX issues. However, since the URL has been fixed in macOS Catalina, I've come up with a file file that actually behaves similarly to a URL file. And yeah, it still allows to open local executables. However, the idea is that, yeah, it allows to open local executables, but if quarantine mechanism would work as expected, both URL and file log wouldn't have any value for attackers. Actually, file log file is a 10 years day vulnerability because it was found in 2009. And actually, it was known that file log is dangerous for macOS devices without enabled gatekeeper. At that time, the gatekeeper was still in development. The question is, at one point of the time, there was a working file log file, and from another side, macOS head of macOS security in Apple decided to give an exception to OneDrive. That raises the questions. Actually, file log files are handy because they are not blacklisted, and in some browsers it's possible to achieve code execution via extensions. Yeah, it's a low-risk issue, but I found this issue in Firefox and Chrome extensions, in Chrome and so on. My personal opinion regarding this research, mark of the web bypass on Windows is always considered a severe bug, even if Windows has around more than 100 of potentially harmful files. I don't understand why the same bug on macOS is considered only as a violation of best practices and not as vulnerability. It's actually absurd why so many well-known apps like WhatsApp, Telegram, and so on, they are affected by such a simple issue. Again, I think that Apple must educate developers on secure file handling and UX security, like Apple iMessage doesn't open files, it shows them in Finder. And it's a good example of good UX security. Another thing is that developers probably must be responsible for secure file handling in their app, and they need to know the details, platform-specific behaviors of the operating system. Another thing is that nice UX, it's always results in more users, in more revenue, but we need to keep in mind that security is more important than user experience. Outcomes of this research. Popular macOS apps now enforce file quarantine, more than 15-20 apps. The technique has become popular among bug hunters. The research describes attack vectors that can be abused by very unsophisticated attackers. And yeah, the research revealed two interesting macOS features: URL and file of files. Still, there are some open questions. Who should be responsible for secure file handling, Apple or developers or users? Another question: is there a way to completely fix all file quarantine issues related to file quarantine? Is it an unique case in Apple ecosystem? Probably not. There are similar cases. Another thing that's really about which I'm really worried is it normal to make exceptions for some components like Microsoft related to entitlements? And probably another thing that developers might forget is that they need to educate their users better on security. Some kind of post-mortem. Postponing the disclosure was a bad idea. It would be better if I have released the slides earlier. I'm glad to see that many bug hunters decided to weaponize this technique, and I wish the unpatched apps can somehow just remediate the found issues. And a general advice to all security researchers is to search for misconfigurations. For example, Essential Blast is a good example where a very similar situation exists. Thank you. Any questions?
Did any of the companies you reported the bugs to have bug bounty programs?
Most of companies have bug bounty programs, but for example, MS has bug bounty program only for Windows products and not for macOS products. So I don't think they really like. I think they care about Windows users most, and only later about macOS users. Most of companies have bug bounties, and yeah, it was a fun experience reporting bugs to them. Yeah.
What did you do with your 25 money?
With my 20.
What did you do with your $25 from
I didn't get them, but I expected just a thanks. Like I asked Viber, do you have any bug bounty, or you can just add my name as Hall of Fame and so on. They responded with $25 to Viber out credit, and it was very ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like you communicate with so many companies, and it's almost like maybe they didn't know how to bucket your vulnerability. But I see it as kind of, very generically, it's input validation, but it's in the workflow. Anyway, just trying to go from like, I get something in, throwing with it next. So today, anybody that you talk with, maybe come close to having a term that might resonate with these vendors? Did you coin a term that stuck with more people?
Probably this issue should be fixed by Apple, must be fixed by Apple. But from another side, Apple, all App Sandbox applications apply file quarantine attributes, and it's actually very easy just by setting one value, one property in InfoPlist to add file quarantine to the app, to develop the app. From another side, it's to be honest, I see all the situation as borrowing of developers and companies need to educate their users, and in this case we see that companies want a better UX, developers want to ship the product faster, and it results in educational debt. They don't educate their users on secure file handling, and when iMessage is actually is a great example, because they show the files they have. iMessage shows a file in Finder. iMessage has a preview, and for me it seems like Apple can potentially make some guides or educate their developers better on this feature. From another side, Apple introduced authorization, and it seems like this issue will be remediated very soon. But yeah, it's a generic problem, and many people say that, oh, it seems like an Apple bug, but no, Apple has already gave all required materials to developers and users. So it's actually a very complex issue. You need to understand who actually need to act: users, developers, companies, and so on. Okay, thanks.